nature and scope of disaster. Taking into consideration the scope of disaster, some of the important facts must be thought over as follows: pre-disaster phase, warning phase, emergency phase, rehabilitation phase, recovery phase, and reconstruction phase. These are the scope of disasters. Now, taking into consideration the nature and scope of disaster, only three aspects of disaster are important for common citizen. Let's study each one of it in detail. The emergency phase, rehabilitation phase, and reconstruction phase. To begin with, phase of emergency. Important characters of this phase is that maximum lives can be saved by quick actions during this phase only. Various actions like search and rescue operations, medical assistance, first aid, restoring communication services, removing the people from affected area are expected in this phase. Gravity of disaster can be estimated in this phase only. Understood? The next is transitional phase. Rehabilitation work is started in this place after the subsidence of any type of disaster. It includes clearing of debris, restoring water supply, repairing roads, etc., so that it will help to bring normalcy in public life. Rehabilitation of the victim is important aspect of this phase. Generally, different institutes offer the monetary and other type of help to such people. It helps to soothe the mental stress at the earliest if these victims are offered with the permanent mean of earning livelihood, and this is true rehabilitation. Next we have reconstruction phase. This is highly complicated phase. This phase begins in transitional phase. People construct their buildings and facilities like roads and water supply are restored. Farming practices are restarted. However, it takes long time for reconstruction. Our planet Earth has experienced many such natural disasters. Are you getting me, children? Are you able to understand? Good. Listening to the description of those disasters bring numbness to the mind. Most of the disasters are related unprecedented situations have been occurred in the Asian continent and region of Pacific Ocean. Huge loss of life and the planet Earth has been occurred due to such disasters. Generally, such conditions of natural imbalance have been arisen due to greed of economic progress of human being. In reality, old problems of several years have become fierce. For example, increasing population, Its increasing needs, emerging problem out of it are now at the extreme end. Such disasters have been increased after the Second World War. Condition of instability arises in the country due to various reasons like inequality, racial and religion differences, etc. Incidences like terrorism, abduction, social differences have been a routine now. Production and use of harmful chemicals is under ban in developed countries. However, production of either same or those chemicals which can wipe out the human race is common in developing and underdeveloping countries. Do you know, children? In 2014, there had been a huge landslide in the village Malin, Taluka Ambegaon, district Pune. This is the image of the school reconstructed after the disaster. Children, always remember, though avoidance of such natural disaster is impossible, loss out of it can be minimized. However, man made disasters can be avoided. Helping each other in the crisis of disaster is our ethical responsibility. Another such threat to human being is from atomic energy plant. For example, radiation leakage occurred after a blast in atomic energy plant at Chernobyl, Russia. Its ill effects are still experienced in the region. This atomic energy plant was only used for electricity generation. Nowadays, many countries are equipped with atomic energy. Out of this, risk of radiation leakage is increasing due to carelessness. Hence, the importance of disaster management has become the foremost need of almost all the nations. In fact, it is the most important necessary for citizens of all the countries because they are the main sufferers in any type of disasters. Hence, direct participation of citizens in disaster management is highly necessary. Similarly, disaster management scheme should be changed with respect to location, time and nature of disaster. It should not be restricted for a particular period. Overall, there may be any type of disaster. It should be overcome. Concept of disaster management has been arisen out of this only. Are you getting me, children? Are you understanding what I am trying to explain? Good. Let's move ahead. So now let's learn disaster management. Disasters, whether minor or major, short time or long time, it should be overcome, and effective disaster management is necessary for it. Disasters are never planned, but losses due to it can be prevented in a planned manner. Disaster management is either prevention of disasters or making arrangements to face it or at least achieve the abilities to face it. In case of disaster management, there should be an attempt to minimize the losses. There is a close relationship between disaster management and public participation. Disaster management. Take all possible measures to prevent loss of human life after the onset of a disaster. Supply of essential commodities to the affected people to reduce the effects of disaster. Restore human life in the region by creating reconciliation in disaster. Rehabilitate disaster victims. Implement protective measures in such a way that the disaster will not reach in future and take care to reduce its intensities. Next we shall learn is the disaster management and public participation. Disaster is very fast process. That is, it is an accident. It causes a huge loss of life and property. In order to minimize the losses in such emergency situations and protect ourselves and our belongings, communal help is a must. This will not only help to protect ourselves and our belongings, but will help the large number of masses to do so. Now, disaster management is achieving or time to time improving the ability to face the disasters through scientific and careful observation and analysis of data. For example, preparing the action plan through the study of various aspects like preventive measures, rehabilitation, and construction, and executing that plan is nothing but the management of disaster. Disaster management can be divided into two parts: pre-disaster management and post-disaster management. The pre-disaster management includes pre-disaster management comprises of complete preparedness and planning to face any type of disaster. The activities involved are identifying the pre-disasters area, collecting information about intensity of disaster and probable sites of disaster through predictive intensity maps and hazards map irrespectively. Getting special trainings for disaster management. Increasing awareness about disaster management among the general public through training programs, mass medias, etc. Now, why pre-disaster management plans are confined to the government? To create awareness among the people, not only the government, but we citizens of the country are also prepared for any forthcoming disaster. Now, further, the second one, post-disaster management. The activities involved in this are providing all types of necessary help to the victims of disasters, participation of preferably local peoples saved from the disaster in arranging the helps to victims, Quick establishment of help center. Different types of disaster need different types of control centers. Categorization of the help material received from control center, delivering the materials to the victims, and continuous review of the help. Being always prepared for disaster rescue. Have you understood, children? Thus, after studying of so much about disaster management, we can say that there are 7 important aspects of disaster management cycle: preparation, redemption, preparedness, impact of disaster, response, resurgence, restoration. Understood? Now the next we shall learn about the District Disaster Management Authority. At the district level, district collector is responsible for disaster management and implementation of rehabilitation schemes. Collector is planning, coordinating, and controlling the implement of rehabilitation programs. He gives out necessary instructions and reviews the entire system. District Collector is also responsible for designing the schemes for each district separately for each type of disasters and getting those sanctioned from state level authorities. Establishment of district-wise disaster control unit. Are you getting me, children? So, do you know what are the district-wise disaster control units? Come, let us study this. So, district-wise disaster control unit. District control unit is established immediately either after the impact of disaster or getting intimations about it. It reviews about various aspects of disaster, keeps continuous contact with various agencies like Army, Air Force, Navy, Telecommunication Department, paramilitary forces, etc. for getting help. It is also responsible for coordinating with various organizations for their help in disaster management. So children, there are some other organizational also that work for disaster management. United Nations Disasters Relief Organization, United Nations Center for Human Settlements, Asian Disaster Reduction Center, Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, World Health Organization, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. These are some of the international organizations that work for disaster management. Now, who does what? National Disaster Response Force has been established as per the Disaster Management Act 2005. Divisions of this force are working in Army. Overall, 12 divisions are working in the country. Its headquarters is in Delhi and It is in action all over the country with the help of army. In Maharashtra, National Disaster Response Force is in action through State Reserve Police Force. Personnel of this force have substantial contribution in rescue work in disasters like cyclone, cliff sliding, building collapse, etc. Moving to the next, let us study first aid and emergency action. You have studied in earlier classes about types of first aid to be offered to the persons injured in disasters. Use of this knowledge is useful for offering the help to classmates or people around you facing any disasters and injured therein. Sometimes we have to face the disasters due to our own unawareness. Some symbols given besides are seen used around us. Those symbols can be ignored. Such symbols are useful to avoid the mishaps. Now let's think. Following are some pictures of disasters. Which precaution would you take during those disasters? Yes, the answer is the first picture is of earthquake disaster. The precautions to be taken during an earthquake are: move to a safer open areas. Stay away from objects such as light poles, buildings, trees, and telephones and electric wires which could fall and injure you. Stand under a desk or a table. Stay away from seashore. The second picture is of fire disaster. In case of minor burns, the injured part should be washed with water or held under water. Clean the wounds using a cotton swab soaked in an antiseptic solution. Do not apply oily ointments. Cover wound using dry dressings. In case of serious burns, give emotional support to the victim. Cover the wounds with sterilized cloth. Remove jewelry, shoes, etc. if easily possible. Do not touch or burst the blisters on the skin. Do not apply oily ointments. Give the victim water to drink. The third picture is of snake bite. In case of snake bite, wash the wound with water. Give emotional support to the patient. Tie a cloth tightly above the wound. Get immediate medical help. So, observe this, children. Give the reference of the following pictures and explain importance of each of those in disaster management. Which are other such activities? In emergency condition, various transportation methods like cradle method, carrying on back, carrying on two hands are to be followed. Those methods depend on the condition of victim. We face different types of major or minor disasters in our daily life. Varieties of disasters like accidents, stampede, injuries in fighting, electric shocks, burns, heat shocks, snake bite, dog bite, fire due to electric short circuit, epidemic of any disease, etc., happen around us. Victims of disaster need to be offered some primary help before actual medical treatment. First aid is useful in such circumstances. Now, children, complete the given chart as per the objectives of the first aid. So, objective of first aid. First, we have relieving the pains, preventing deterioration of conditions of victims of disasters, saving lives, attempt to improve condition. Now there are some blank spaces. So first is give basic life support, prioritize casualties, promote recovery, and protect the unconscious. The next what is we will learn about is first aid. It is essential to have materials necessary for first aid. That material is available in the first aid kit. You can also prepare a first aid kit. It is also important to use whatever the material available in the given condition for first aid. Get information. Meet the medical officer, doctor from your village and collect information about providing the first aid. The necessary material in first aid box. First, bandage, strips of different size. Wound gauze. Triangular and circular bandage. Medicated cotton. Hand gloves. Clean and dry cloth pieces. Soap, antiseptic, Dettol or Savlon. Safety pins. Blades. Small pins. These are all required for your first aid. Needle, band-aid, torch, scissors, thermometer, and petroleum jelly. These are the material which you require in your first aid box. Children, can you tell me whether there had been mock drills by firefighters under the disaster management scheme in your school? Which technique did you see during the drill? Yes, there had been mock drills by firefighters under the disaster management scheme in our school. We obtained information regarding various techniques to help and rescue victims of fire disaster. Mock drills. It is a practice to check the preparedness of facing the disaster as early as possible. Virtual situations of disaster is created to check the reaction time for any type of disaster. Trained personnel observe their responsibilities to check execution of plan designed for disaster redressal. This helps to check the efficacy of the system prepared for disaster redressal. Mock drill is arranged on disasters of fire in various schools by the firefighters. It includes the demonstrations like extinguishing the fire, rescuing the people trapped at higher floors of buildings, rescuing the person whose clothing have caught the fire, etc. Such activities are also arranged by police force and voluntary organizations. Objectives of mock drills: evaluating the response to the disaster, improving the coordination between various departments of disaster control, identification of own abilities, improving the ability of quick response to disaster, checking the competency of the planned actions. Competency is the capability. Identifying the possible errors and risk. Children, always remember, do not cause chaos and push each other while using staircase in the school. Remember important helpline and use as per need. For example, police 100, firefighting force 101, disaster control unit 108, ambulance 102, etc. Follow the traffic rules. Look at the left and right sides while crossing the roads and ensure that any vehicle is not passing by. Understood? Do not touch any unclaimed object. Do not spread any rumors. Do not make chaos at the crowded place. Students, do remember, cleanliness and health always coexist. Give up the addictions and stay happy. Healthy life is the key to success. Follow the rules to avoid disasters. Today's students are the future of our country. Isn't it, children? Yes. With this, we have come to an end of this chapter, disaster management. And we have learned many things, children. And this lesson was very interesting, isn't it? Yes. Kindly watch the video attentively and then read the lesson. We shall see you in the next video with a new lesson. Till then, children, take care of yourself and your family. Thank you, children.